Welcome to Sentient Snail ASMR. Like, share, subscribe, but most importantly, enjoy. Well, adventurer, this is where we start. At least, this is where I started. Imagine to yourself, if you can, a young dragon in human form, feeling oh so vulnerable and alone, standing in the corner of a street, surrounded by humans. Smells unfamiliar. Everything is wet after the rain, and the smells and the sounds of this town all around him. Imagine how nervous he must have been, about to step in to a new world, to discover new things. It's not like I wanted to be there that day, but it's not like I have much of a choice. I was not in the least bit prepared for what the human world had to offer. But my father, well, he insisted. And if you'd known my father, adventurer, you would have known. There is no saying no to him. My son, it is time for you to get out of our nest. It is time for you to start getting to know the world that we find ourselves in. Time to meet humanity and the elves and the dwarves. It's time for you to go out and experiment. You must collect the knowledge and experience that will preserve you and our future race for many centuries to come. It is only the knowledge that we have, only that, coupled with our powers, that protect the dragon race from total annihilation by the weaker, more plentiful races. For without understanding comes detachment, and if we detach from the world, it will come knocking at our doors, and we will not be prepared. You will go out into humanity, and you will make yourself a life there, as each dragon does when he comes to this age. You too will find yourself friends of the lesser races, and you will gather yourself a group around you. You will seek out perils and adventures. You will learn the dangers of this world as they take the risks, protecting you from the unknown, while you test and experiment with your powers and abilities. As you grow in power, they will become less and less necessary. By the time you have grown enough to handle such an adventure all by yourself, they will be unnecessary. It is then, and only then, must you discard yourself of them and return here for me to assess your progress. But I don't want to go outside. I'm happy here in the cave with you. I mean, it's scary outside, and the people. And I don't want to go. Don't make me go, please. I just want to stay with you. It is not an option, my son. You must understand. The value of what I do to you here is not something to be taken lightly. This is essential for your survival, for your mate in the future, and for the entire dragon race. The world changes rapidly, and we are long-living and ancient creatures. If we do not send our young to learn and adapt as the world changes, before long it will catch us off guard, in our caves, in our halls, in our burrows. You are but the latest in many dragon generations, studying the world around us to better adapt, to better prepare. You will go, my son. If you go willingly, it is for the best. But if you do not, my fires will push you out all the way to the nearest human settlement. I prefer not to do that to you, my beloved son, and therefore I suggest you start walking. As I said, not the kind of person you can actually say no to. And so I found myself outside the Lucky Barrel, thinking of maybe going in there. I had heard from a drunken traveler the night before that this would be a place where adventurers gather and collect to find new missions, to get to know each other, and to share stories of hard-fought battles. I figured this would be a good place, or at least as good as any, to try and find myself these companions my dad spoke of, to try and perhaps find someone who will take on this young adventurer without asking too many questions. Hesitantly, slowly, I found my way up the stairs and opened the tavern door. What I encountered inside was every bit as overwhelming as what the outside street held for me before. The first thing I noticed was the music. It was so loud and noisy and permeated the hall, bouncing off the walls. It seemed to be everywhere. 1,000 different songs playing all at once in my head. I had to struggle just to focus on one of the melodies and not all of them at once. My hearing, as it is, was slightly better than the average human, and the assault on my senses was more than I was ready for, at least in the beginning. The second thing was the atmosphere. Scent of 1,000 bodies, washed and unwashed, beers and ales together, soaps and flowers from foreign lands, powders, everything filling the air, and the crackling of burning candles and torches supplementing the atmosphere. It was very different from my cave, from my father's cave. It was very different from anything that I've seen before. People seemed, for the general part, kind of happy. The atmosphere was almost merry as people ran along each other, minding their own business, laughing and playing and singing. For a young dragon just out of his den, this seemed to be both frightening and friendly. And I was standing at the doorway, soaking it all in, when I suddenly and unprovokedly got attacked by a human.
Hello, and welcome to Lion's Inn. What can I get for you today?
I looked at her for a couple of seconds, trying to understand what was happening. She wore a plain cotton shirt, smudged and dirty, with a thick leather apron atop. her hair tied in a single bun behind her back, and she seemed to look at me as if wanting something. I stared for a second or two, trying to figure out this strange human and what she wanted from me. And then, impatiently, she spoke again.
Sir? Sir?
It dawned on me. This must be one of those waitresses I've heard about. She must have wanted to know what I want. Oh, of course, this was an inn, a tavern. I'd forgotten. Humans spend money here purchasing services, food and drink. I had gotten a few coins from my father to start my trip. I suppose this would be a good time to start pretending, to start blending in. I smiled at her and said, "I'll have some water, please, and maybe some... do you have cow here? I'd like some cow, please, with my water." She gave me the dirtiest look, but the smile never left her face.
You got it.
As she walked away, my keen hearing could still pick up that nasty remark.
What a freaking weirdo.
But I guess I did something wrong. I still have so much to learn about these places. Well, here's for first experiences, I figured. And I just walked around, trying to get a better eye for this place. After a few minutes, it was the bulletin board that caught my attention. Located at the back of the inn, right next to the oak barrels, was a giant board covered in scraps of paper pinned together with nails. Rusty old things they were, but the papers relatively new, piling on top of each other all across the board. It was lucky that I had learned writing a century ago and could actually read some of these things, those that weren't too terribly scribbled, that is. And I tried my luck in reading these announcements. It was pretty clear what I was looking at. These were advertisements, notices for willing adventurers, for missions that they might find, for people who were willing to hire them. This was a good place to start. Now I was sure of it. All I had to do was find a few people willing to go on a mission, and perhaps offer my services as a new member of their party. I have long decided to introduce myself as a warrior mage. That would explain both my strength and my occasional magical abilities, and I was pretty confident I could pull off that role. Don't laugh at me, adventurer. There were times when I too was on the open road, much as you are, building a life for myself in the same way that you have come to be here today. But I digress, and my story waits for no one. I still remember my shock. I kind of jumped backwards a little when I heard that voice for the first time. He was a funny one, that. Oh, sorry, adventurer. Sometimes one gets carried away when telling one's memories. Anyway, I was standing at that bulletin board, wondering what to do next, when I heard that voice, loud and clear. A young and whimsical voice that had traces of seriousness and also the feel of laughter, all woven in to the same melody. "Hi there," he said. "What are you doing around here? You're new." I turned around to look, but there was no one near me. There was literally no one around. I was a little shocked when the voice spoke again. "Ahem," he said. "Over here." I turned my head and looked down to find this smallest of creatures right at my feet. He was almost a childlike in appearance, but had the face of a fully grown man, and in height reached not much higher than my knees. He was dressed, I still remember, with a green shirt and the weirdest brown hat that had absolutely no shape and every shape at the same time. He smiled a most charming smile, showing his white pearly teeth, and said again, "Hello, stranger. My name is Knight. What is yours? And what are you doing here? I've never seen you around here before." Charmed by his diminutive form and jubilant demeanor, I smiled and answered, "I'm an adventurer. I'm looking for friends, someone perhaps to go out on an adventure with. I do not wish to go alone, and this place seemed like a good place to start looking." His laugh was almost infectious. "I thought so," he said. "You looked a little lost. You adventurers always have that look on their faces. Perhaps you'd be interested in some company. I can introduce you to a few friends. We are actually looking for someone to join us. And if you like us as much as I'm sure we will like you, perhaps you've already found what you've been looking for." With nothing better to do, I smiled and thanked him, and he took my hand with surprising force as he led me to their table. "Friends, family," he smiled, "I would like to introduce you to our newest member. What was your name again?" Shit, I thought. I'd never thought of that. I have to give them some name, and I can't very well give them my name, my true name, as it is spoken only in the dragon tongue, and that would most surely give me away. I had to think fast. I looked around the inn, trying to understand, to give something to get me inspiration. And then it struck me. Talus. Talus is my name," I said, "and I am a warrior wizard on his way to glory and adventure." Little Knight, I remember, just laughed it off, as if it was the most natural thing in the world to just learn the name of someone he'd introduced as their newest member. He looked around the table, beckoning them with his eyes, asking them to introduce themselves. Some did so reluctantly. Others seemed rather amused at the little man's demanding initiative. "My name," said one of them, "is Daku, and I am a warrior. If you are to join us, you would be most welcome. We could use the extra muscle on the front lines." The young priestess most ebulliently came at me and said with the shyest voice, "Hi, I'm Lily Ann, and I'm a priestess for the god of nature. It's a pleasure to meet you, I think, and it'll be delightful to have someone else to talk to in this place. Everybody here is so violent all the time." I had noticed their third member was not as anxious to come forward. Eventually, Little Knight walked up to him and literally kicked him in the shin. The stranger made a face of utter discontent and briefly said, "I'm Lucian. I'm the wizard. Don't get in my way." "Well," said Little Knight, "I think we've done with introductions. Perhaps you'd like to sit with us, have a meal. I see you already ordered. The waitress will just bring it over here. And besides, we should get to know each other better if we are to hit the road. Our plan is to leave early in the morning, for there's a goblin nest needs taking care of, and I think you and I will be very good together. Not that I don't work well with everyone. He laughed, causing a cascade of laughters from everyone around the table. Even the wizard, in his remote disdain of the situation, couldn't hold back his giggle under his cowl. I could immediately tell these people felt comfortable with each other, and by nature, I felt comfortable with them as well. I hoped that I had finally found those companions my father spoke of, those that would protect me while I grew, and something inside me already told me that that would not be their mission alone, for I had already felt their kinship and connection, and just something small inside of me yearned to be a part of that, to feel that connection as well, and join in their camaraderie. I remember we stayed in that inn for hours, laughing and talking, exchanging stories as I devoured the meat and learned for the first time what utensils were for. But I will not bore you with such trivialities, adventurer. Those are stories that are better left for the imagination. What happened next, as the evening drew to a close, is that they invited me upstairs to their rooms, for they had acquired 2 separate rooms as lodgings, so that we would not have to sleep outside in the cold before a night of adventuring begins. Happily, though somewhat wearily, I made my way for the first time to the 2nd story of the tavern and to a human lodging. I have never seen a bed before. I have heard about them, of course, but I wondered how one even got into a bed and what one does with these blankets I've heard of. Quietly, I followed them, head tilted downward slightly as I watched each stair leading upstairs. Stairs were a new thing for me too. Though there were a few of them in my father's caves, I had never used them. Flying around just seemed easier, and these stairs were creaking. I wondered if they could even hold my weight. Yes, they did hold my weight, adventurer, and we did make it safely to the 2nd story of the tavern. My first impression was how different it was from the story beneath it, from the entryway and the hall. This was a lot more homey, the lighting more subdued, everything was covered in wood, and I could feel the warmth radiating from the walls. This was almost fancy in a way, and yet simple and welcoming. The doors to the different rooms were spread out across the corridor, and little carpets were spread on the floor. This place was inviting, was warm, and I knew that this would be a place to feel comfortable in and take a load off, especially after a long journey, or before one, as I was about to embark on. My new friends were chatting amongst themselves, and I was keen on hearing their stories as they told jokes only they understood about past stories, teasing and ribbing each other in a friendly manner. Even the wizard, Lucian, seemed rather involved in these stories, emerging from his dark cowl to throw a well-aimed stab at one of the friends, and whenever one became available. He even laughed when one of them shrieked a little backwards in embarrassment at a particularly harrowing tale. We were walking down the corridor, all ready to enter our rooms, when a strange and mysterious woman blocked our path. "Hello, boys," she said, prompting an angry huff from Lillian. "We're not all boys here, you know." The woman ignored her completely. "I'm afraid your rooms are a little out of order at the moment," she said. "I'll have to ask you to stay right here. We're experiencing some technical difficulties with your lodgings." Knight, never quite calm, as I've already gotten to know him, stepped forward and looked at the lady right in the face. "What do you mean, technical difficulties?" he said. "We paid for the rooms. They're ours. What are you doing in there?" He tried to push past the lady, only to prompt movement from the open door behind her. A strange and foreboding tall creature came out, helping the lady block the passageway. His sword was drawn, leaving no room to mistake his intentions. "I'm afraid you won't be going to your room today," he said, his white eyes a contrast to his black, dark skin. The sword, curvy and wavy, and the sharp fingernails giving him away for what he truly was. An abomination, I thought. A half-breed dragon, not able to wear dragon form, but trapped forever in the form of a powerful human. I've heard of these before. Mercenaries they were, assassins and allies to dark wizards. And this never ended well. No story with a half-dragon ever did. "What do you want from our rooms?" Knight inquired, now taking a step back to the relative safety of his friends and allies. "None of your business," said the man, and the lady just giggled. "We are doing what we came here to do, and you will wait until we are done doing it." The group took another step back, silently looking at each other's eyes, deciding on how to continue. Eventually, it seemed, again, it was up to Knight to take the call. "I think we'll go to our room now," he said, as the party slowly drew their swords. "Big mistake," said the man, and the lady just whistled. A third character emerged from the door. Everybody took another step. This was not an ordinary man. This was not a man at all. An ice elemental in human form. This was getting strange. An ice elemental, one of the rarest and most dangerous of creatures, a half-dragon assassin, and what for all signs seemed to be a female assassin or a sniper. Something serious was happening around here. Everybody was tense. Quiet fell across the air as the ice elemental was about to speak. "Ah, but I see you're getting tired again, adventurer. Perhaps it's time we take a little break in my story. You humans tire so rapidly. Yeah, you can lay back and relax. I will watch over you as you sleep, and we can continue my little tale tomorrow. Meanwhile, I will fix you a nice meal. I think I still have a little bit of cow left in the back. Is charbroiled okay? Not that I can do anything else, you know. We dragons are not really good cooks, but I think I can singe it up nice and warm for you. Go to sleep, adventurer. I'll tell you the rest of the story tomorrow morning." Thank you all for listening. I really hope you liked the video. See you in the next one, I hope.